Okay, it is 1 o'clock. So welcome everyone, good day and a very warm welcome, and thank you for joining us today for what is set to be a brilliant event on energy technology. We have a fantastic lineup of expert speakers who will be unpacking insights, trends and leading energy technologies. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Nicola Probyn. I'm the co-founder of Africa Scotland Business Network. We are a growing dynamic international network of businesses across Africa and the UK. And we use a network model and public partnerships to assist companies with international trade and partners. We offer our members loads of different services, including events such as this one, connections, access to information, plus loads more. Energy technology is the biggest shared economy between Scotland and Africa right now. And now that we've got an established and growing business network, we'll be strategically moving towards a renewables and energy tech sector focus. Before I hand over to Claire Mack, who's the CEO of Scottish Renewables, I wanted to say a huge thank you to our sponsors, Scottish Development International, Andrew Monaghan, Ian Ross, Laura Peinke have all been absolutely amazing in the support of not only this event series, but the network as a whole. Thank you so much. Now over to you, Claire. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nicola, and I'm really delighted to be able to take part in this session today. Very exciting because of those words that you've just used, insights, trends and leading energy technologies, and that's something obviously here in Scotland that we definitely do take the lead in. So who am I and why am I interested in this? So my name is Claire Mack. As you said, I work with Scottish Renewables, who are the trade association for the renewable energy industry here in Scotland, and I represent about 260 members, most of whom generate electricity from renewables and in a low carbon way. And very interesting to be in this kind of global stage, particularly this year, because obviously here in Scotland we will be hosting COP26 in November. So our thoughts have been very much on that kind of global picture for some time now. And just keen to go through a quick set of kind of world firsts, because that's something that we've really been focused on as well as part of that, kind of thinking about what it is that Scotland offers in that global context from an energy technology point of view, and a number of world firsts and big numbers to start talking about. And I know you'll get a little bit more of this later on from some of the speakers. But first of all, we had Beatrice, in terms of that's our biggest offshore wind farm in the UK. So that is right here off the coast of Scotland, and really exciting technology that has seen, very big cost reductions in very recent times. So very exciting. As well, we've also housed Hywind, which was the world's first floating offshore wind farm. Again, a big technology for the future. Just because of the availability and wind speeds that we'll be able to harness through being further out into the ocean. Scotland also houses about 85% of the UK's hydro technology, which is probably largely to do with our geography. We're obviously mountainous, but also we get a lot of rainfall, which is very helpful from that kind of hydro technology perspective. And we also house about 2/3 of the UK's onshore wind capability, which has very much been the backbone of the UK's kind of decarbonisation story to date. So some really interesting stuff going on here in Scotland. And we also very recently had elections here in Scotland, and at Scottish Renewables we were very keen to urge the Scottish Government to look at economic benefits and to make them part of our future economic plan, to make renewables part of that future economic plan through various means, including using our trade and investment powers here in Scotland to promote renewable energy skills and technologies to other nations, and really looking forward to building low carbon energy systems with people across the world, being able to use our collective knowledge to really get moving and to help everybody else on their decarbonisation journey. So that's effectively who I am and where I'm coming from in this. So really excited today because we've got some brilliant speakers from the network, and also some people who are working at the absolute forefront of renewable energy technology between Africa and Scotland. So really good to have that link up here. So I'm going to introduce you to our first speaker, who is Dr. Martin Valenti. He is Energy Transition and Green Enterprise Director, and he's going to officially open this event series for us. So Martin, please do take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire. I think one theme you'll certainly see from the speakers today is we're all highly energetic, passionate and motivated people, because we, unlike many other people, see the climate crisis not just the crisis that's really important, but it's also the greatest economic opportunity of our time. And we have to recognize that we will be eyes of the world will be on Glasgow and they'll be on Scotland. And what will they see when they see Scotland as a nation? They'll see a nation on its toes, coming forward with ideas for solving problems. What they won't see is a nation on its knees crumbling under climate change, because sadly, I mean, it's called COP26 because there've been 25 before, 24 of them. It's abject failure because they couldn't balance the needs of the economy versus the environment, apart from one, and that was COP20 in Paris with the wonderful Christiana Figueres. And what they managed to agree in Paris was this global agreement to manage climate change emissions. That was really, really good. But what we will better is that when Scotland in COP26 in Glasgow is that we will come forward with this very progressive plan for balancing economic success with environmental success, which actually ultimately leads to well-being. So there's something about Scotland at the moment. We have this kind of mojo, we have this ambition for being this world leader, but not just because for Scotland we think it's good, it's because we should, because we gave the world 3 industrial revolutions and some of the recalcitrant challenges that were left behind. So you should be assured that the 4th industrial revolution will be predicated in solving the problems the first 3 left behind. We also gave the world the current economic system, Adam Smith. It isn't entirely successful. It has brought great success, but not for everyone. So one of the things we want to make sure is that we address that economic thinking, and we're doing that, probably leading the world doing that kind of thinking in Scotland. And as Claire rightly mentioned on the slide screens, the big screen slide behind us, you'll see all of the really exciting things that's happening in energy, because energy is the biggest opportunity. It's also been our greatest success story so far, thanks mostly to the work done by Claire Mack and our team at Scottish Renewables, which has just been transformative. We just need to make sure all of our other sectors are as transformative. So we need to clone 55 Claires if we can do that. Someone knows how to do that. Faisal probably knows how to do that. So we'll come to that later. So the last point I would just try and get us all to focus on today is that, you know, fear paralyzes, hope mobilizes. We need to be hopeful when we are looking at the climate change scenario. And there's something about the Scots that you should think about, is that people speak about climate change as Climageddon and a cliff edge. Well, we don't. We view it as a mountain. Mountains are equally dangerous, equally perilous, but we like climbing mountains. In fact, the higher the mountain, the more excited we get. So as we are the host for COP26, we want to be passing to COP27, which could be Africa, the African nations. We know that Egypt, some other parts of African nations are looking to bid for it. So fingers crossed for you, because if you do get it, you can be assured, and you can hold me and Claire to account for it, is that we're not going to hand you what Madrid handed Scotland, which is, sorry, we couldn't figure it out. We're going to hand you a playbook for COP27, which is going to be about how to address and balance economic success with environmental success and prosperity. And Claire spoke about World First. Let me just remind people here of the World First that I'm really proud of. Back in 2012, because Scotland realised it was contributing some challenges for the world, and our success sadly has created some problems in countries, including Africa, it's payback time for us. So, you know, we created the world's first climate justice fund. So you can Google that and get some details about it, and maybe Claire Alexander will share them. But it's a step forward in the right direction. But I'm so looking forward to hearing some of the amazing speakers today, and I'm really excited about COP26, and I would urge you to be also. This is our chance to transition how we view the economy and the environment and nature, because to do it separately is pointless. We need to do this together. We need to be collaborative, but the overall thing, we need to be hopeful. So thank you for that. I know we've not got a great amount of time, because Claire Mack and I could chat all day long, and we probably will. But you know, over to you now, and good luck with the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. That was really, really superb, and great to hear that message of hope. I think you're absolutely right in that even, you know, obviously this COP has been delayed by a year. And if I look at, you know, when it was due to happen, I was less hopeful then than I am now, because there's 2 very key factors here. You know, America's back at the table, and there's almost this race to the top between China and America. You know, it's very unusual in international context. You know, quite often what we hear about is race to the bottom, but this is an absolutely a turnaround of that situation, which is everybody outbidding each other to be able to make climate commitments, really does mean that we've got a lot to be hopeful about. And like you said, playing up into that world leading ambition is something that Scotland is very much ready to do. So we've got another speaker coming through now. So we're going to hear from SDI now. And I believe Laura Peinke, you are going to, as the Senior Energy Trade Specialist in Southern Africa for SDI, is going to give us a few key headlines and help us move on with the rest of the seminar. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thanks, Claire. I'm super excited to be speaking today. One of the reasons that I love my job is I get to sort of move between the transition between Scotland and Africa. I was born in South Africa, but I'm super excited about what the Scottish capabilities, the Scottish lessons are for Africa, and how we assist in implementing them. I'm going to just ask if we can go back a slide, if you don't mind, because I just want to talk to some of the stats and just look at Scotland's renewables sector before I sort of dive into the African component to that. And I think that it's really important that we just take a look at some of these numbers, because I think that they highlight the road that Scotland has walked. I mean, we've heard a huge amount of the challenge and the opportunities that the energy transition brings about. But I think what's so exciting about the Scottish example is that look at where they've come from. They've had tremendous success as a country in oil and gas, but they've also got the skills on the engineering side, the financial side, the skills and training and education space, and they are using skills to be able to transition into the renewable space, and they've done so to date very, very successfully. And some of them are provided by Scottish Renewables, so thanks, Claire, really appreciate it. But I think that it's really important to just acknowledge the work that has been done to date in achieving the energy transition. And some of those stats really do speak to that there are currently sort of 14 gigawatts pipeline available of renewables that are either under construction, awaiting construction, or in planning. That's a massive opportunity when you speak about numbers. And I think that if you look at sort of the Scottish capability in terms of the European sort of market context, 25% of the entire offshore wind resource crosses the sea around Scotland in terms of European resources that's used. 12 gigawatts of renewable electricity capacity is generated in Scotland in 2020. And I think the statistic that was produced last year is something that 97% of Scotland's energy requirements were generated by renewables. I know that target was 100%, but it's super exciting to be some countries are able and have to be able to say we had oil and gas, we have the capabilities as a result of oil and technology to apply to the energy transition space, and we're doing that currently. And I think that that's really really exciting when it comes to looking at the applications that it has for the African market. And maybe just to comment is the UK government has made a lot of sort of commitment verbally as well as in policy and legislative documents to say we are going to be transitioning away from traditional fossil fuel resources to more energy and renewable energy sources. And I think that commitment is bold, but it takes that bold commitment to change. And change is never an easy thing. But I think that commitment and bringing industry, academia, and people on board with that commitment is really, really important. And that makes us excited for things like COP26 in Scotland later this year, and then it being hosted in Africa next year. It means there's a wealth of opportunities for us to be able to link the Scottish and African sort of markets together. And that's also where Scottish Development International comes in terms of our assistance. We're there to act as a platform for companies, both from Africa and Scotland, looking at each other's capabilities, looking at each other's markets, and helping make those connections. But it is important to acknowledge that we cannot do that unless we are working together with partners like Scottish Renewables, like Africa Scotland Business Network. The partnerships are what we really value. And I know that you're going to hear from some exciting companies a little bit later today on what they are doing, looking at the African market, and vice versa, what Africa is doing in terms of looking at Scotland. So I'll leave that segment there. And if you don't mind, I'm going to transition straight into sort of a little bit more about the African market. So I indicated before that I'm super excited to be in this role, but one of the reasons that I'm excited to be in the role for Scottish Development International is because I'm extremely passionate about Africa, and I really believe that Africa's got a long way to go before it reaches its full potential. And I believe that energy and technology are two of the most important aspects as to how Africa is going to reach that potential. I think more importantly, the people of Africa are so incredible to find solutions to the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis. And being able to leverage the Scottish capabilities, the Scottish companies that have a focus on Africa, and albeit that my geographic focus is in southern more than the whole continent, I really do believe that the opportunities and the relationships, the contacts and networks that Scottish companies can bring, and vice versa, African companies can bring to Scotland, is really how we fulfill that passion of mine. So firstly, when we think of Africa, we often think of a massive landmass with a large population. In reality, there are 54 sovereign countries, 6 of which are island nations. Algeria is the biggest country by landmass. Nigeria has the largest population. And Egypt, Nigeria, and South Africa tend to arm wrestle for the award of the biggest economy in terms of GDP. It's also no surprise that the continent has vast natural wind and sun or solar resources, but these are typically very underutilized. And I think the Global Wind Energy Council recently published a statistic that said that only 0.01% of Africa's wind potential is currently being utilized. Biomass, coal, oil and gas are still the dominant fuel sources, but these often come at high environmental and health costs. The International Renewable Energy Association, IRENA's Global Renewables Outlook, that was published in April 2020, revealed that sub-Saharan Africa could meet 67% of its power generation from indigenous and clean renewable energy by 2030. That's fairly low-hanging fruit, and that's a really short timeline to increase the number of people that have access to electricity from just under 50% to 67%. Further analysis into this and the investigation show that the energy transition discussion, transformation could boost GDP, it could improve welfare on the continent, and it could also result in employment gains of up to 2 million additional green jobs in sub-Saharan Africa by 2050. And I know that is a genuine concern, not just in Africa, but in Scotland as well, where people are trying to transition from typical fossil fuels, skills, capabilities to green technology. Despite the evident need in terms of increased access to electricity, Africans are innovative, and countries such as Nigeria, Rwanda, and Kenya have seen massive growth in the tech space in response to finding innovative solutions to energy access. Countries like Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, Morocco, and South Africa tend to lead the renewables effort on the continent, but some of Africa's smaller countries, including Cabo Verde, Djibouti, Rwanda, and Swaziland, have also set ambitious renewable energy targets. And there are a number of projects across the continent, including a tidal and wave array project in Cabo Verde, massive wind farms in Mauritania and Burkina Faso that one just would not normally conceptualize when thinking about renewables and the energy space on the continent. I also don't want to spend my time sharing tons of details on specific projects. That would be a little bit of a waste of time. But I do want to emphasize the fact that countries such as Kenya are using huge amounts of mobile technology to increase access to renewables technologies. Anglo American has just developed a fuel cell technology for the world's largest heavy vehicle. And they're going to be implementing that in South Africa fairly soon. Statoil has been partnered with Toyota Motors to roll out hydrogen-powered fuel stations across the country on one of the busiest highways in South Africa. There are additional wave technology programs. And in countries like Zimbabwe, where one would typically find constraints around capital, liquidity, and markets, we are seeing that many companies in the mining and agricultural space are financing projects in the renewables arena. And these are really exciting because we're starting to see normal people have access to energy as a result of both combining energy and technology together. And again, the energy and technology sort of combination is really important when it comes to addressing climate change challenges that the continent faces. And one of the issues is that many countries in Africa are powered by hydro technologies. And because of droughts, because of lack of rainfall, it's really interesting that many countries are having to diversify their quest around renewables, and many countries are now starting to have additional renewables policies as a result of changing that strategy. If we can go to the next slide. Similarly, I'm not going to really dwell on sort of Scotland's energy history because there's a huge number of projects that I could talk about. What I wanted to do, which I thought would be really valuable, is share some of the things that I have learned in the space of time that I've been working with Scottish Development International. And I think that these are points that are really relevant for Africa, and something that I think that most people don't necessarily know about upfront. So one of the most important things that I've noted in Scotland is that there's a lot of pilot and demonstrator projects when it comes to testing clean, renewable energy projects and the technology that they're associated with. So the country and the people aren't scared of trying something and making a mistake, but at the same time, those mistakes enable them to adapt technology into their specific market. And these that would typically fall under this banner include the hydrogen 100 homes currently in Fife, the Aberdeen Hydrogen Bus Project, which literally started with 2 buses in order to be able to prove and demonstrate the technology. And yes, those projects were initially fairly expensive, but if they start to learn from them, they can reduce costs. And that's something we typically see when we implement technologies and have the time or have the experience of being able to roll those projects out. We see project costs naturally falling, and we're seeing that across the African continent today when we look at renewables technologies and clean tech technologies. Alongside those pilot and demonstrator projects are also the fact that we can build capacity, we can build skills, and we can build the knowledge in order to roll out the larger scale projects. Secondly, Scotland also embraces a culture of sharing knowledge and experiences, as well as lessons learned and skills transfer. Be it an individual who willingly gives of their time and their knowledge, or a university who openly shares their research and the path that they have taken to bolster the policy environment in a particular sector, to an industry association or chamber willing to work alongside other chambers for the benefit of all members, or even the incredible and fourth and over women clusters. This culture really enables faster growth, adoption of new technology, and allows much faster commercial success in a shorter period of time. And I think what I want to say is imagine the pace at which Scotland's energy transition sector will develop by learning and building on the skills and capabilities from the coal mining sector, the oil and gas sector, that have been developed in Scotland's economy and history. And I think that that's really important for Africa as well, because we have the unique opportunity to leapfrog both on the commercial and technology perspective by building partnerships, making additional network connections and contacts, and adopting technologies and lessons learned from other countries. I think Scotland really has a role to play on the African continent with respect to that. I also want to just emphasize again the importance of utilizing engineering and finance skills. You know, those skills are adaptable across multiple as well as and then lastly, if we can move to my next slide, to make that I really feel is very important when you're looking at the relationships and the energy transition and energy technology space, is the importance of supply chains and economies of scale. So one of the projects that Scotland has been promoting is the energy transition zone. I've included a map where the zone is located, and what I want you to take from this is that the zone has been located in an area with lots of energy activity, both fossil fuels and clean energy, along port infrastructure and supply chains, places where people live and where financial and academic centers of excellence reside. I think it's super important that we acknowledge the relevance of being able to incorporate supply chains, incorporate companies that are already in existence, and that economies of scale question. So while pilot and demonstrator projects are important, it's also important that we are able to build supply chains because there are economies of scale. Something else that I've included on that slide is a screenshot of the supply chain portal that Scottish Offshore Wind has launched recently. And here, with a click of a button, you can access information on companies across the supply chain. You can read about the company details, you can read about the sector that they're involved in. Now, I think this is a really interesting aspect of something that people tend to find a challenge when looking at Africa. In African countries, companies would tell you the same thing, that it's difficult to access reliable partners and find information on supply chain companies. A recent development in South Africa between UK Pact and Green Cape, which they launched a similar platform in South Africa to promote companies that had capabilities in the renewable space, is one way that that's being addressed. But I'd love to see similar projects rolled out across multiple countries that have renewables and clean tech energy programs, because I believe that that technology allows us to make much better partnerships. It also allows us to incorporate academia, research institutions, centers of excellence, and skills and training academies in the same breath. And then lastly, just to make a point to mention that although I haven't included a slide on it, I firmly believe that education, skills, and training has a fundamental role to play in both the energy and the technology space, but also it supports the rapid acceleration of energy and technology adaptation. We already have a number of Scottish companies involved in the education, skills, and training space in Africa, but SDI as an organization would love to see many more. And we know that there's opportunities for companies to be able to be included. This is universities, vocational training institutions, schools, and companies that are willing to provide financing for the education and training sector. That's it from me. Claire, I'm going to hand back over to you and for the next speaker. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Laura. What a brilliant overview there. And I couldn't agree more with you around that coupling of digital and energy and actually how that's happened almost naturally in Africa, because those two sets of infrastructure have rolled out together, which I think is really, really important. It's something that we're trying to catch up actually here in the UK is the recognition that the new energy system will be a smart energy system, and it has to be, you know, developed alongside those kind of digital technologies as well. Some really, really interesting stuff coming through in the chat as well. We've got people from all over. We've got Cape Town, Dubai, Uganda, and we've got various different people coming in from energy efficiency space, energy services, including drone tech, PR services, and all sorts of metals and minerals and stuff as well. So it's really, really interesting to see the breadth of engagement here today. Our next speaker is Andrew Monaghan. He is the Regional Head of Africa at SDI. So really pleased to welcome you to the stage now, Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Can you guys see and hear me okay? Okay. Sorry, my speech is going to be a little bit out of sync because I had some technology problems trying to get in. So my object would be to paint Scotland, the picture of Scotland as an energy nation to you. And I've got very, very short space of time to do so, so I'm going to trip through it very quickly. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, Scotland's established itself as an industrial nation with a reputation for engineering excellence, quality, innovation, and very importantly, professional integrity. We tend to see ourselves as trusted partners rather than faceless suppliers. Our industrial history is an integral part of our nation. Let's not forget, we are the people that helped kick off the whole industrialisation thing by giving the world the steam engine. In the 19th and especially the 20th centuries, Scotland cemented itself as a place where industry flourished and no target was too difficult or too challenging. Scots are people not easily daunted. In the last century, Scotland became a supplier of industrial goods and services, from ships and locomotives to sewing machines, exported and used all over the world. And from the 1970s onward, Scotland embraced the fossil fuel abundance deep under our seas. In so doing, tackling the formidable engineering challenges inherent in extracting oil and gas from some of the most inhospitable working environments on the planet. We've gained a deserved reputation for subsea engineering prowess, in particular, with Scottish oil and gas revenues before COVID of £20 billion annually, over half of which exported. If you've travelled around the oil and gas world, as I have, you will have become familiar with the, let's say, unusual accent of Aberdeen, with an Aberdeen engineer on the end of it. At every stage in Scotland's industrial history, we have stood on the shoulders of our own engineering giants. We have transited from one industrial revolution to another with the immense benefit of a sound platform of an engineering supply chain that could be transformed to meet the new demands rather than having to create one from scratch. And now, in this new age where the world has finally, some may say, woken up to the undoubted, clear and present dangers associated with climate change, Scotland is once more embarking on a new engineering revolution to transform our fossil-fueled country into one fueled by clean, green power. As with previous revolutions, Scotland's green energy industry will be able to draw from the platform of oil and gas subsea engineering excellence that we already have in our country. That process has in fact already begun and is now accelerating at an often dizzying rate. The challenges are huge, and we've been asked to achieve success in a very short time frame, but we are confident we'll meet those challenges. I'll leave it to other speakers today to go into a little more detail as to where Scotland is currently with regard to our green energy transition. As I say, we face huge challenges, but we have already achieved some truly remarkable milestones. Scotland has one of the most ambitious targets in the world for the adoption of green energy, with the Scottish Government aiming for half of all Scotland's energy demands to be met from renewable sources by 2030. And this slide, if you could put the slide on, which I think Laura's maybe already done, Claire, yeah. So if you go to this slide, you will see that already we are generating the equivalent of pretty much all of Scotland's electricity consumption from already installed renewable capacity. And my thanks to Claire Mack, Scottish Renewables, for these statistics, incidentally. But this is only the start. As you can see, we have a further 14 gigawatt of green power already in schedule, which should leave us in a commanding position to not only meet our own growing demand for green energy, which I predict will be steeper than most believe, but also to produce surpluses that we can export to the world, just as we did with oil and gas. I can see the day when Scotland is associated as much with producing and selling green hydrogen as for oil. While this capacity has come mostly from wind, originally onshore, but now increasingly offshore too, we also produce significant power from hydro schemes, including pumped storage. We have ambition to lead the world in wave and tidal marine power, which, due to our wet and windy climate and huge varied coastline, we have in abundance. You'll see as an example that Scotland, as a nation of 5.4 million people, is reckoned to have around a quarter of all Europe's offshore wind potential, a natural blessing that we have every intention of reaping green energy rewards from. And I'll halt at that and hand on to the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Andy. That was super. Now, I've had the heads up that Stephanie McDonald, our next speaker, has got a bit of an unstable connection, so we're hopeful that we're going to get as far as we can here, which would be great. So Stephanie, who is the international commercial lawyer with ASBN, is due to come on shortly. We actually have a quick poll, I believe, actually to do next. Danny, are you going to tee up the poll just to drive some engagement, obviously, with our audience as well? Brilliant, thank you so much. So, question being, help us to help you. What subjects would you like to see SDI and ASBN cover more of in energy-related events? It's a multiple choice question, so please do get voting on the poll. We've got another couple of questions in there too. We can get some of those answers in as we go and possibly come back to the poll at another point later on in the event, but please do go in and take part in that and be able to tell us what you want to see coming forward. Aha, starting to get some people through now, the poll. There's just a bit of a delay coming in. So great stuff in there, and very much relevant to what we're talking about here today in terms of technology, and very much the leading edge there is in terms of all of the above. I'm very interested to see as well what you think about the Energy Tech series and the delivery of it as well. Hybrid approach, I think everybody feels that is useful. And then we've got a final question in there in terms of COP27 coming back to Africa. Would you like to be part of a business collective similar to Net Zero in order to do that? So, yeah, great results in there in terms of the poll. So the really clear kind of question and answer in there was about technology, which is helping us to help you. Which subjects would you like SDI and ASBN to cover more of in energy-related topics? That technology piece, and I think that was very much at the heart of what Laura was talking about earlier there, is that, you know, development of technology alongside energy too. Hybrid approach in terms of conference formats, which again I think really helps when you're talking to this global audience internationally, works really well, and which in terms of prioritising clean energy in Scotland, encouraging African governments and leaders to prioritise clean energy, and lots of people wanting to be part of that COP27 business collective, which is mentioned there in the poll. So that's Perfect. Really, really pleased that you were able to take part in that. So moving on to our next section now, what we do have is Stephanie McDonald. She is, as I said, international commercial lawyer for the Africa Scotland Business Network. So please do take it away, Stephanie, and we'll see how long the technology lasts for us, hopefully.
Thanks very much, Claire, and hello to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. Yeah, I am an international commercial lawyer. I'm actually a non-exec on the Africa Scotland Business Network board, and I spend most of my days helping to put deals together across a number of sectors in Africa, but most recently a lot of stuff in the renewable space. I am a Glaswegian. I've been here in South Africa and doing deals in Africa for the last 6 years. And I've been asked today to talk to you a little bit about my insights on sort of nuts and bolts of actually getting deals done down here in Africa, for those of you who are perhaps in Scotland in particular, having not embarked on transactions here before. So in light of my slightly unstable connection today, I'm going to switch off my video now, and you can just peer at my mugshot there while I take you through some points for consideration. So I've got 3 topics I want to cover because I've only got a few minutes. The 3 topics are: number 1, regulatory environment; number 2, local content requirements; and number 3, some thoughts on supply chain, and particularly in light of COVID over the last 18 months. So dealing firstly with the regulatory environment, I think it's probably fair to say that the African continent is not always seen as the most business friendly. And of course, that's a very big generalization. There's 54 countries here, and the legal and regulatory environment does change and is very diverse across the continent. But it is true to say that it's not always the most business friendly place to come and to enter markets. And what we find is that investors and contractors and suppliers who want to come here and participate in the renewable energy sector, they're always looking for the enabling environment from a regulatory point of view to make things happen, and really importantly, stability on policy around that. And unfortunately, those 2 things are not always easy to find. If I just give you a recent example from here in South Africa, which I'm pleased to say is a positive example, although it did come as a surprise to many of us. And I can see Laura smiling there because she knows very well that what we've experienced in very recent times in the last few weeks is a sort of out of the blue announcement by the South African government to allow private embedded generators to generate up to 100 megawatts of power unlicensed. And this was something that we didn't see coming. I mean, business had been asking for sort of 50% less than that for many years, and there was a huge resistance from government. And then out of the blue, during a period of Eskom load shedding, we got this announcement that there was going to be a major freeing up of licensing. So this is really going to open things up for particularly the commercial and industrial space, and is a great thing for the South African renewables market. But it hasn't always been like this. And if we look back, say 3 or 4 years ago, we were in the middle of the renewable energy IPP program round 4, and we had a huge delay on that program because of political interference. And so I guess the message there is, and that's obviously just one example, if you want to come here and break into renewables markets, you've obviously got to do your homework on the regulatory environment and stay close to developments, as close as you can. The other few things I wanted to mention on the regulatory side are things like tax and regimes around customs and duties, and of course foreign exchange risk, currency risk. That's a sort of basket of financial and commercial factors that will impact on the economics of doing deals here. And again, it's a big one for due diligence and homework, depending on which jurisdictions you're looking at. You know, to take a positive example, I've been helping an operator who is looking at doing a project in Madagascar where there's a mine that needs the solar. It's a hybrid of solar and wind energy plus battery storage, and the Madagascan authorities have actually set up a sort of special economic zone around that mine. So there's lots of positive exemptions on things like VAT and lower withholding tax levels and lower levels on customs and duties. So there are examples out there across the African continent of you know, tax incentive schemes to get people to come to those countries to bring their money and bring their technology and make things happen. It's just a question of looking around and finding where those incentives lie. Just quickly to move on then to local content, which has been mentioned already, particularly by Laura, and I also saw in the chat that there was an organisation called Crested Crane Connections who seem to be plugged into the local content side of things and talking about the importance of feet on the ground. And that was really what I wanted to mention here, is that, you know, if you want to come here and be successful in Africa, and I would say, again, it's a generalization, but I think this one is true, you have to understand and you have to be serious about playing the local content game. And that means, you know, a number of potential things, you know, local equity, you know, spending money on the local supply chain. If you are employing local labor, then, you know, ensuring that labor is a diverse labor workforce. Training, Laura mentioned the importance of training and upskilling and education. And more generally, you know, having the ability to and the willingness to invest in community projects alongside the projects that you're doing in renewables. And you know, we've seen that. I'm currently working with a major brewer that has operations across Africa, and we're doing power purchase agreements for rooftop solar. And for every single one of those power purchase agreements, the supplier has to demonstrate a solid commitment to investing in community projects, and it's actually a core part of the key performance indicators in those contracts. So that is common, and it's growing in importance across Africa. So just really a flag, an important message there, that you need to understand these things, and you need to find local partners who can help you to participate. The last thing I wanted to mention is supply chain, and in particular the impact that we've seen from COVID on supply chains here in Africa. So I guess it's fair to say that COVID is still having a major impact here. You know, generally speaking, the African countries are behind. They've been slower in terms of introducing their vaccination programs, and we're still having serious waves, including down here in South Africa at the moment, where we're on a serious lockdown level 4. So COVID is still very much playing a role down here, and it's having constraints on the supply chain. So obviously constraints in terms of supply and demand, constraints in terms of, you know, reduced mobility, and even things like, you know, counterparty risk, you know, a greater risk of insolvency or a greater list of late payment. And the other aspect, of course, is policy. You know, local policies changing to try and encourage people to buy locally and to support local manufacturers and supply chains during this difficult time. And you know, just as a small example, I've been busy helping with another mine, actually, this time in Zimbabwe, where we are procuring solar PV to help power the mine, and you know, contracts are signed, everything looking like it's going to go to plan, and then we've been sitting waiting to get our Chinese suppliers of the modules to actually agree a price. And you know, we are seeing the Chinese suppliers really starting to play hardball on availability, on turnaround times, and on pricing. So all of that, they say, is driven by COVID impacts. So maybe there's an opportunity for Scottish suppliers to come in and start competing more and opening up the markets to try and unlock some of those constraints. So that's really all I wanted to cover in my 5 minutes. I hope it was of interest to you, and yeah, I look forward to hearing the rest of the seminar.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Stephanie. That was great. We are getting a little bit pushed for time, but so I'm really keen just to keep moving. So my next speaker is Dr. Faisal Ghani, who is CEO and founder of Solaris Kit, who will talk us through his technology. Thanks, Faisal.
Great. Thanks very much for that introduction, Claire. It's great to be here with you all today. Solaris Kit is actually a new member of ASBN, so I'm delighted to have this opportunity to tell you a little bit about what Solaris Kit is doing in Scotland. So I founded Solaris Kit just over 2 years ago now, after inventing a new type of solar collector. So Claire mentioned world first. So we are bringing to market the world's first flat packable self-assembled solar collector. But typically when people think of solar collectors, they think of devices which turn sunlight directly into electricity. Our solar collector is quite different. We turn sunlight directly into heat. And the reason for that is why we're focused on heating is because heating is really the elephant in the room when we're talking about tackling climate change and reaching our climate goals. A lot of great work is happening in this space, rolling out solutions like batteries, direct air capture, electric vehicles, and the general electrification of the energy sector. But as a whole, we're making very little progress with decarbonizing heat. And this is concerning because, next slide, please. Around half of global energy is consumed to meet heating demand, and this is still largely met using fossil fuels. This means that a very large portion of our energy-related carbon emissions is coming from heating. This obviously has an impact on the environment, but meeting heating demand also places significant strain on the grid, which is a key issue faced by countries like South Africa and Nigeria. It ultimately also affects quality of life. So next slide, please. In Kigali, Rwanda, for example, households report spending up to 40% of their income paying their energy bill, the majority of which just goes into heating water. It was actually when I read this statement in a journal paper while I was an academic at Heriot-Watt University that really was a turning point for me personally. Working as an academic in the solar energy field, it just didn't seem right that this situation existed because, next slide, please. Unlike Scotland, Africa has an abundance of solar energy, and this energy can be easily converted into heat using solar thermal technology. The potential of solar thermal in Africa is enormous. In fact, the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, in their Africa 2030 roadmap states a potential for a 50-fold increase in the deployment of solar thermal across the African continent, driven by population growth, economic development, and of course, rapid urbanization. But to realize this potential, regional barriers facing solar thermal technology needed to be addressed. Next slide, please. So here's a photo of the world's most commonly installed solar thermal collector. It's the evacuated tube collector. You've probably seen them in Africa. This collector has been primarily developed for the needs of industrialized economies like Europe. So while they're very high performing, especially in cold climates, next slide, if you hit next, please. They're typically over-engineered for, sorry, back one, engineered for a sunny climate like Africa. So they're unnecessarily expensive, they're large and bulky, typically requiring 2 fairly skilled technicians to install. They're prone to reaching very high temperatures if you operate them in a sunny, warm climate like Africa, which means that they have to be installed with more expensive copper and steel piping. And they're also badly damaged by hard water. So all of these are barriers which have prevented their wide-scale adoption and prevented all the benefits that come along with harnessing a natural resource. So it became a personal mission of mine to try and tackle this problem. So next slide, please. So this led me to develop a completely new way of turning sunlight into energy. It's a prismatic shaped solar collector, which is able to convert sunlight directly into hot water. The reason why I went for this design, next slide, please, is because it can be manufactured as a flat packable self-assembled device. So something like an IKEA product, which can be assembled in approximately 20 minutes without requiring a single tool. This design has a number of benefits. Chiefly, we can substantially reduce manufacturing costs. It's much easier, safer, and cheaper to ship. And obviously that's very topical with COVID at the moment and the disruption to supply chain. It's also been designed to be easy to install and maintain, addressing the key barriers faced by incumbent solutions in Africa. So next slide, please. We're also been very busy developing a new completely self-assembled solar hot water system for rural sub-Saharan Africa, which we're very excited about at Solaris Kit. It's essentially a completely self-assembled solar hot water system, which comprises of the solar collector, the storage tank, the framing, all the necessary piping, which can be easily shipped to remote regions of the continent. It's able to provide hot water without requiring any electricity, and it doesn't even need mains of water to keep the system operating. Our goal with this solution is to create the cheapest and easiest to install solar hot water system in the world, which is pretty cool considering it's coming out of Scotland where we don't have a huge amount of sunlight. Next slide, please. So something that I'm personally very passionate about is how we can stimulate economic development as we embrace the low carbon future. This is obviously something that's been touched upon by Martin and Claire, of course, and other speakers. And this is something that we are very passionate about at Solaris Kit. So being an engineer, I personally believe in the importance of manufacturing to create jobs and provide revenue through exports. So one of the great things about the Solaris Kit's collector design is that it lends itself well to being manufactured locally, quite easily with little capital investment. And we know this firsthand because we've actually established a manufacturing line in Dundee at the Michelin Scotland Innovation Park, which is shown in this photo on the right. So we found that with approximately 100 square meters of space and just 3 workers, we can create an assembly line that can produce around 20,000 collectors per annum. So in Scottish currency, that's around £2.4 million in revenue with a capital investment of circa £50,000. So it lends itself very well to being replicated in Africa, creating manufacturing hubs where we're looking at licensing our technology, creating jobs, supporting local supply chain, reducing transport-related carbon emissions, and of course, building local green capacity with the ultimate goal of reducing energy-related carbon emissions. So I didn't have a huge amount of time. I tried to rush that to get us back on track, but next slide. I'll just end it there. And so if anyone had any questions or is keen to discuss a collaboration or a partnership, my contact details are at the bottom of that slide, and I'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Faisal. Perfect. And our speakers are doing a great job because all the questions that have appeared in the chat so far have been answered during the course of the presentations, which is great because we are a bit squeezed for Q&A time. But please do, audience, put your questions into the chat function. We're going to come, I've got my final speaker coming up now, and really keen for you to put any questions to any of our panelists up in the chat right now, and I'll start gathering those. But then it now remains for me to introduce our final speaker. Like I say, we've got Bankole Oloruntopa, who's CEO of the Nigerian Innovation Centre, also has the title of Honorary Consul to Finland at the Embassy of Finland. So I'm really pleased to welcome you, Bankole. Please do take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Claire. Good afternoon, everyone, from the biggest and the best city in the world, Lagos. I want to thank you all for this session to have with you. My name is Bankole and I run the Nigerian Climate Innovation Center, which is located at the campus of the Lagos Business School. And the whole essence is to drive the growth of a green economy in Nigeria. So I'm going to just, I've listened to what everyone has to say about, the possibilities that happens and how to do business in Africa. And I'm glad for the different, perspectives and the understanding of how the African economy works. But there's still a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding in engaging with many African countries, particularly governments and also, the private sector. So I'm going to start my conversation from the best country also in the world that I know of, which is Nigeria. So in the Nigerian economy, renewable energy has become, one of the best invested sectors in our economy currently. There's a huge energy gap amongst all the different things that we do. There's still about 80 million plus, people who need access to energy. because of the highly commercial nature of most, of Nigerian SMEs, which is also filled with a lot of SMEs. There's still that energy gap also that tends to address, needs for SME issues, which again has created a huge market, for many investors who would like to come to this part of the country. Solar PV technology has been the widely used innovation around access to energy in Nigeria and also some other African countries, and also the kind of revolving policies that we have created over the years is also catching up with the dynamics of what you find here in Nigeria. The Nigerian short-term energy sector is worth almost about estimated about $10 billion, and this cuts across different types of subsectors within that economy, from mini grids to off grids and all that different hybrid models around providing access to energy. The Nigerian economy is largely youth populated. It has been said that the Nigerian economy will, the population will rise to about 350 million by the year 2050, and over 80% of that market, of that population will be youth between the age of 18 to 35, and which gives you access to a large workforce and also a sustainable market, when it comes to engaging and also building opportunities, for the different interests that you might have in this economy. Now, there've been quite a lot of conversations about Nigeria and how we are and who we are. But look, one thing I can tell you is we're a bunch of entrepreneurial people, and everywhere we go, we try to show that in the different manners that we can. You can ignore the little bunch of ones who just cause us a little bit of problems, but the large talk of credible and wonderful Nigerians in any part of the world that you go are always focused on giving the best to the communities where they are, and also showing the best of knowledge, and also supporting lots of local content opportunities in the different countries and also within the Nigerian economy. Funny as it might sound, during the COVID period, as businesses were shutting down, Nigeria also witnessed over 50% increase in SME, in SMEs, on also micro SMEs that have been set up here in Nigeria. Also, again, many, with the different thoughts around how the growth of Nigerian economy might be, we all have different dynamics. We have dynamics of mixed cultures, which means that in a country like Nigeria, there are about 37 states and over 300 tribes, and these different tribes also have different contexts to how they view, how their perspectives are, and also the kind of cultures that you find in each of this sites. And also, we're very quality and wonderful people to work with. Yes, you heard me when I said that we are trustworthy, and quite a number of people have asked me that, and I'm always proud to say it anywhere I am. Please, next slide, please. So when you're coming to the Nigerian economy, there are some things that you also need to identify, which also connects with most African economies. The use of technology for us is really very key. But one thing we have come to understand again, that technology for us is an enabler. Business model is the real catch here when it comes to coming to Africa. Many businesses have faced a lot of problems because many business models that have been taken from the different economies where they are coming into the African economy has been the same business model, but it doesn't work that way. You need to domesticate the kind of business models that you have. And that also falls in line with understanding the cultures and the people, within the different African countries that you will go to. Because again, we are a very highly cultural, group of persons, in Africa. It is always imperative that you factor that into your marketing strategy, your product assembly, and even your product designs. And so what is possible for us here within the African economy? Technology enhancement for energy efficiency is really very key. Most households spend a lot. All right, just like Faisal has shown that a lot of households spend a lot when it comes to energy access and also the bills around energy. But again, being able to help or create an energy efficiency model again creates a lot of possibilities when you're dealing with African economies, and not just only African economies. If you're focused on reaching underserved sectors within the African economy, then you really need to tweak your business model a lot more. Multiple financing possibilities are also possible here. There is also local finance, and as well that the need for more injections of FDI. But being able to work with a local firm or a local partner also gives you the potentials, to be able to scale about 30% of the hurdles that you will face when it comes to engaging, within the African economy, or rather Nigerian economy. And the reason of this is that being able to understand the government is one. Many investors come here with the perspective of the different governments that that they're coming with, but it's such a shock, right? When you come here and you feel that, that culture shock, that what you think works from your home country or any other country that you've gone might literally not just work here. And not because the government is not inclined, or rather the government is not understanding what is happening. But again, most African governments are protective of their local economy. And so it is always of best advice that when you are coming into the African economy, you need to have a local partner who clearly understand, not just from your perspective, but also within the perspective of African businesses and African economy. And I think that my role being the honorary consul to the government of Finland and Nigeria is also trying to demonstrate that in so many ways when it comes to creating linkages between businesses around most countries or both countries. The needs within the markets, that you find within energy market in Nigeria keeps increasing. SME businesses are scaling, and there is need for more energy. And energy access, when it comes to business model, for me, I will say that in most African economies, particularly within the Nigerian economy, selling impact might not just be the best step for you to understand, to enter the Nigerian market, but being able to show the economic value, around what you're bringing into the economy, as it affects purchasing power, gives you a better chance of excelling within the market than having to discuss about impact. Because look, our thinking is simple. When there's money, sustainability happens. When there's money, impact works. So better you show me how to make money, and then I can save the world. If you tell me save the world before you make money, you might likely be wasting your time. And I'm being candid with this. So if you have a business model that empowers the purchasing power of African homes or economies or businesses, then you have a potential of scaling within the market. Also, use case fit innovation is also important. Now, many times often people wonder why there are not so much innovations coming out of Africa. Well, guess what? We only try to develop innovations around the things that affects us. So if we're really not interested in in electric vehicles, it's not our fault, because we have other options to that. So when businesses are coming into the African economy, or rather again within the Nigerian economy, try your best to understand what is the best fit when it comes to innovations that is needed within the economy. There are some innovations that are not just ready, not because we don't want it, but really because it really, it doesn't have a marketplace currently. A certain few might have that interest, but again, a couple of others, because of the mass market available within the African economy, will rather differ and go for something that is easy to use and also of best case fit. Market entry and growth partnership is really very key. And for market entry, so I took a few notes down from what everyone have been sharing around doing business in Africa, and it is also of good note to see that many of us here understand that Africa is not just a large piece of land, and it's a couple of countries who have different perspective on how to handle foreign engagement, foreign businesses, FDIs, and as well creating soft landing opportunities for businesses. So one of the first advice I give for people who would like to come into the African economy is this: look, find a local partner, and there are a lot of fantastic local partners, either from your home country or also from your country of interest, that can work with you with the right attitude and the right businesses to help you engage with the kind of markets that you need to find. So if you do your homework a little bit, talk to quite a number of people, whatever bias that you have about many African countries, you need to hang it in a very good perspective, and try and listen to those who work within the economy to help you share that more. And so for many times often, when people say that it is, it's not easy working in Africa, we agree with that, right? But also there are lots of businesses here of foreign descent that have been in African economies for over 40 years. And they're doing, doing very great numbers and increasing lots of perspectives around engineering and also sustainability in Nigeria. Sometime last week, I visited the Lagos free zone, free zone, and it was good to note that, look, there are lots of models around engaging with African governments and also African economies that has to relate with those who understand that economy a lot more. So market entry for many, for many businesses in Africa is really not rocket science. It's really around you building as much relationships and partnerships as possible. Because look, we're a community-driven, bunch of people. We like to talk to people we know and people we like. And we're very hospitable, and we do our best to make sure that if you're coming into this country, you see that, you meet the best persons and you're able to connect with the, with the best infrastructure, and we show you lots of opportunities. Also, please, next slide. So for us within the Nigerian, Climate Innovation Center, we have been focused on driving the whole, green economy within the Nigerian market. And for us, we're not looking at the green economy as a potential to replace the fossil fuel economy, but also we are driving the green economy to show the alternative potential of another economy that can as well rival the fossil fuel, the fossil fuel economy. And with that, we try to balance how that possibility works. So within the Nigerian, Climate Innovation Center, NCIC, if I may add, is that we focus more on building ventures within the innovation-driven, venture side of things and the SME-driven venture side of things. So the reason why we think SMEs are really very key in driving an alternative economy in this country is because of the high transactional value of most SMEs, unlike innovation-driven enterprises that you have to wait a couple of gestation periods before you can understand how your market or your business model works. So this is sort of like a snapshot of what we've done in about 24 months, and with the kind of possibilities that we have found, around special economic zones, or and also sustainable free zones, market matching, creating deals, and as well as testing new models. We will say that many times, often demonstrating a product for us here might work in some certain smaller economy, but there are some economies that really have the large numbers and the real market value. So it is always of good importance that connecting with the right groups of people helps you achieve the best things of what you need to do within the Nigerian economy. And I hope that, as time goes on, several other conversations are going to happen, and quite a number of people are going to see the potentials of having to work, with African partners to help you achieve your, your investment target and also possibilities. Thank you very much. And I hope that, and I'll also be on the standby to hear from quite a number of people. Cheers.
Okay, thank you, Bankole. That's absolutely perfect. So I do apologise that we've run over a little bit, and I've completely squeezed the time for Q&A. But there is an offer, obviously, in there from the team to get in touch with them, and they will answer any questions that anybody has. And I'm very happy to engage going forward. So thank you very much for all your engagement there on the chat. Really, really exciting to see some of the connections being made and all of that stuff that's been going on through there, just to read about some of the technology that's coming forward as well. I'm going to pass to Nicola, who's just going to give us a very quick overview of the next set of events. Thank you very, very much for attending. Thank you very much to my panelists and speakers. Seeing some really positive feedback in the chat again as well. So thanks very much to everybody. Nicola.
Thanks so much, Claire, and thank you so much to the speakers. That was absolutely fascinating. I think we could have carried on for at least another hour. We would love to welcome you all to the next 4 events that we've got lined up. Same time for the next Thursday. The next one coming up is energy transition. Then we've got education and training, hydrogen and wind energy, and then speed networking. So the link, I think, is in the chat to register. Please feel free to open up to your own networks and community. We would like to welcome as many people to benefit from this content as possible. And thank you once again, and apologies that we've taken up a bit more of your time, but I think it was well worth it. And thank you very much. If you'd like to hear more about the network, if you'd like to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you. africascotland.network. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.